You, madam, are the only person creating a scandal here." Those words, sharp and bone-chillingly cold, would shatter the suffocating silence of the Grand Lux Hotel in a heartbeat. But that fateful moment and the truth were still hidden behind a curtain of arrogance. "That Asian woman has been holding up the front desk for over 40 minutes. Sandra Morrison, the manager of the luxurious Grand Plaza Hotel, hissed, her theatrical gaze sweeping over three desperate interpreters, exchanging glances. Japanese millionaire Akane Tanaka stood as still as a marble sculpture, her eyes a volatile mix of disappointment and growing contempt. Her personal assistant was frantically swiping at his cell phone, presumably cancelling million-dollar meetings that depended on this very room. Near the lobby's entrance, Denise Washington meticulously polished the Italian marble floors, her movements tracking the embarrassing spectacle that had been unfolding for almost an hour. At 32, her 6 years as a housekeeper at the five-star hotel had taught her how to become nearly invisible. "Mr. Martinez, get someone else down here now," Sandra snarled at the sweating receptionist. "This is about to turn into an international incident." The third interpreter, a seasoned specialist in Asian languages, shook his head helplessly. "She doesn't speak Mandarin, Korean, or Thai. I've tried everything, but she's ignoring us as if we're invisible." Denise paused her polishing for a moment, staring at the Japanese businesswoman with an unreadable expression. Her gaze held a deep understanding that no one else at the front desk possessed, as if she were the only person in the room who truly grasped what was happening. Sandra Morrison paced back and forth, her expensive heels clicking aggressively on the floor Denise had just cleaned. "If we don't resolve this in the next 15 minutes, I'll be forced to cancel her presidential suite reservation. Just imagine the financial damage to the hotel." A young receptionist whispered to her colleague, his voice laced with panic. "Do you know who that is? It's Akane Tanaka of Tanaka Tech. She owns one of the largest tech networks in the world. If she leaves dissatisfied, our international reputation will be completely ruined." The Japanese woman finally spoke, a rapid stream of her native language delivered with elegant, controlled gestures. The interpreters looked at each other, completely lost, while Sandra Morrison rolled her eyes with growing impatience. It was at that moment that Denise slowly straightened up, setting her mop down next to her bucket. Her every movement was precise, like someone who had just made a crucial decision after carefully observing the entire shameful situation. For years, she had witnessed countless similar scenes in that upper-class environment, always staying silent as more powerful people mistreated less fortunate employees. But this time, something different glinted in her determined eyes. What no one in that luxurious hotel lobby could have imagined was that Denise Washington was hiding a secret powerful enough to turn the current diplomatic crisis into a complete surprise. And her intervention would trigger a chain of events that would permanently alter the power dynamics of that hotel. "My patience is at its end." Sandra Morrison slammed her fist on the marble counter, making all the employees wince. "That Asian woman is turning my hotel into an international laughingstock." "Miss Morrison," the receptionist nervously interrupted, "perhaps we should try another approach." "What other approach?" Sandra snapped, her eyes blazing. "I've wasted 2 hours of my schedule on this ridiculous situation. If she can't communicate in English, she has no business staying in a world-class American hotel." Denise felt a familiar burning sensation in her chest. It was the same feeling she got whenever she witnessed this brand of arrogance masquerading as professionalism. Her grip tightened on the mop handle, recalling countless similar situations where she had been treated like an object by wealthy guests. The manager continued her tirade, now gesticulating dramatically to the small crowd of onlookers that had gathered in the lobby. "Look at this. One of the hotel's most expensive suites, occupied by someone who can't even ask for an extra towel. Sandra, please lower your voice," the receptionist whispered, his face flushed with embarrassment at the public scene unfolding. But Sandra Morrison had completely lost control, fueled by the arrogance of a person who had never faced any real consequences for her behavior. "No, I'm done with the political correctness. This is an American company, and if people want our premium service, they should at least speak our language." It was at that moment that Denise vividly recalled her own experience from a few years prior. She had been unfairly fired from her previous job at a cleaning company for defending a Latinx colleague who had been humiliated for not speaking perfect English. The bitter irony was that Denise spoke 5 languages fluently, a skill she had acquired over years as a volunteer interpreter for humanitarian organizations, a past she had deliberately hidden to get this low-level job out of desperation. "Perhaps we should call security," Sandra suggested with a calculated malice, looking at Akane Tanaka as if she were an unwelcome intruder. "If she can't communicate properly, she clearly doesn't belong here." The veiled threat echoed through the lobby, causing uncomfortable whispers among the onlookers. Akane Tanaka lifted her chin slightly, her posture exuding an unshakable dignity that stood in stark contrast to the vulgarity of the situation. Denise watched with growing indignation, remembering how she had learned Japanese over 2 years of volunteering at a community center for Asian immigrants. She had spent countless evenings studying not only the language but also the cultural nuances, driven by a genuine passion to help people facing the same barriers she knew all too well. "You know what really infuriates me?" Sandra continued her toxic performance, now clearly showing off to the observing guests. "It's the assumption that we have to adapt to them when they should be making an effort to assimilate into our culture." Akane Tanaka's assistant finally lost his patience and began speaking rapidly in Japanese to his boss, gesturing repeatedly toward the exit. It was clear they were considering canceling the reservation and finding another hotel, a move that would be a catastrophic financial loss and an international scandal for the Grand Plaza. A shift occurred inside Denise. It was no longer passive indignation, but a growing resolve she had learned to cultivate over years of confronting prejudice in countless situations. Her eyes met Akane Tanaka's for a brief moment, and in that almost imperceptible instant, both women shared a silent understanding of what was truly happening in that hotel lobby. The Japanese businesswoman whispered something to her assistant, who immediately began typing on his phone, likely canceling not just the hotel reservation, but also the multi-million-dollar contracts her company was negotiating with US-based partners in the city. Sandra Morrison, completely unaware of the financial fallout from her ignorance, continued to display her stubbornness, oblivious that every arrogant word was being mentally recorded by Denise. Denise, a woman who had learned that true power is sometimes revealed precisely at the moment when others expect submission. As the tension in the lobby reached a breaking point, and Sandra Morrison prepared for her next public humiliation, something extraordinary began to shine in Denise Washington's eyes. It was not resignation or fear, but the kind of quiet determination that is born when a person finally decides it's time to turn years of injustice into a lesson no one will ever forget. Denise Washington had made her final decision. She discreetly placed her mop on the cart and strode with deliberate steps toward the group surrounding Akane Tanaka. Her every move was precise, as if she had been rehearsing this moment in her mind for years. "Excuse me," she said softly, addressing the Japanese businesswoman directly. Her voice was low, but there was something in her tone that made more than a few people turn their heads. Sandra Morrison spun around, her eyes flaring with pure outrage. "Excuse me, you are interrupting a critical customer service situation. Get back to your duties immediately." But Denise did not take her eyes off Akane Tanaka. In perfect Kyoto accent, revealing years of dedicated cultural study, she spoke gently in Japanese. "Tanaka-san, gomen nasai. Kono hoteru no shitsurei. Anata wa watashi tachi no kaisha no." "Miss Tanaka, I am sorry. This hotel's rudeness. You are our company's." The silence that followed was unnervingly absolute. Akane Tanaka blinked several times, as if she could not believe her ears. Her expression shifted completely, from one of disappointment to relief, and then to a profound curiosity as she looked at this black woman who spoke her language with a perfection few foreigners ever achieve. "Anata wa Nihongo ga jozu desu ka?" Akane asked, her voice laced with utter astonishment. She wanted to know how Denise could speak Japanese so fluently. "Hi, sukoshi dekimasu." "Yes, I can a little," Denise answered humbly, though her proficiency was clearly far beyond a little. Sandra Morrison was completely paralyzed, her mouth agape in total shock. The professional interpreters looked at each other in shame, realizing that a simple cleaning lady had achieved in seconds what they had failed to do for hours. That's impossible." Sandra finally choked out, but her voice was now tinged with panic. You can't possibly. How could a cleaning girl?" Akane Tanaka interrupted Sandra with an elegant hand gesture, then turned back to Denise in Japanese. Denise-san, doko de nihongo wo manabimashita ka. Anata no hatsuon wa totemo utsukushi desu. Miss Denise, where did you learn Japanese? Your pronunciation is very beautiful. Denise gave a small, knowing smile. The businesswoman was asking where she had learned Japanese and complimented her beautiful pronunciation. Kyoto no daigaku ji benkyou shimashita, mata nihon no bunka ga daisuki desu. I studied at a university in Kyoto, and I love Japanese culture. Her answer, that she had studied at a university in Kyoto and loved Japanese culture, made Akane's eyes light up. It was clear that Denise not only spoke the language, but also had a deep understanding of the cultural nuances. Sandra Morrison was undergoing what could only be described as a live, nervous breakdown. This can't be happening. You're a housekeeper. You're not even allowed to talk to the guests. Right at that moment, Marcus Johnson, the senior receptionist and the only other black person in a leadership position at the hotel, discreetly approached. He had been observing the entire spectacle, and his eyes revealed a mix of admiration and genuine concern for Denise. Miss Morrison, Marcus interjected smoothly, perhaps we should let the situation resolve itself naturally. Our guest appears to have finally received the proper attention. Attention from a cleaning lady. Sandra had completely lost her professional composure. Marcus, are you seeing this? This person is creating an international scandal. Akiko Tanaka, who had understood every word in English, looked at Sandra with an expression so cold it seemed to freeze the air around her. In clear, precise English, with a slight accent, she said, "You, madam, are the only person creating a scandal here." The shock was instantaneous and devastating. Sandra Morrison staggered as if she had just been physically struck. You speak English." Fluently, Akiko confirmed, her voice filled with controlled contempt, "and I have perfectly understood every single racist and xenophobic insult that has come out of your mouth for the past 2 hours." The realization began to spread through the lobby like shock waves. The guests who had witnessed the public humiliation began to whisper to each other, their expressions shifting from embarrassment to outrage at Sandra's behavior. Marcus Johnson stepped forward, discreetly standing by Denise. "Miss Washington," he said formally, using her last name for the first time in years. "I appreciate your assistance in this delicate situation." Denise nodded respectfully, but there was something new in her gaze. It was no longer the resignation of someone accustomed to being invisible, but the quiet determination of a person who had finally decided it was time to be seen for who she truly was. "Tanaka-san," Denise continued in Japanese, "if you would allow me, I would like to clarify a few misunderstandings regarding your reservation. I believe we can resolve everything quickly." Akiko nodded with genuine gratitude, but also with growing curiosity about this remarkable woman who had emerged from the shadows just when she needed her most. Sandra Morrison, realizing she had completely lost control of the situation, desperately tried to regain her authority. "Denise Washington, you are officially suspended. Leave your post immediately." The threat echoed through the lobby, but this time it had no desired effect. Denise looked directly at Sandra, and everyone present could see something changing right before their eyes. It was not fear or submission, but the kind of quiet power born when a person finally decides to stop hiding who they are. "I understand, Miss Morrison," Denise replied, her voice eerily calm. "But before I go, I want to make sure our guest is treated with the dignity she deserves." What Sandra Morrison could not see, because her arrogance and prejudice had blinded her, was that every disrespectful word, every discriminatory gesture of hers had been meticulously observed by Denise and also by Akiko Tanaka. Akiko Tanaka was a woman of international influence who could bring that prosperous hotel to its knees with a single phone call. As the tension in the lobby reached a climax and Sandra Morrison prepared to humiliate someone further, something extraordinary began to emerge in the air. This was not just an employee standing up for a guest, but the beginning of a shift that would expose the true nature of everyone present at that decisive moment. It would prove that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the very person everyone chose to ignore. The Grand Plaza lobby had transformed into a theater, where Sandra Morrison was about to discover that she had picked the wrong opponent for her display of prejudice and arrogance. Akiko Tanaka elegantly took out her phone, activating the discreetly running voice recorder. "Miss Morrison," she said in a chilling voice, I would like to clarify a few things about my identity before this conversation ends. Sandra was visibly panicking, her face shifting between flush with anger and pale with fear. I don't understand what's happening here. This situation is completely out of control. My full name is Akiko Tanaka, CEO of Tanaka Technology International, the businesswoman continued, her voice echoing through the deathly silent lobby. My company holds annual lodging contracts of $12 million with American hotel chains. The silence that followed was terrifying. Marcus Johnson, the senior receptionist, closed his eyes for a moment, realizing the magnitude of the disaster Sandra had caused. The other staff members looked at each other with horrified expressions. Furthermore, Akiko continued relentlessly, I am a member of the International Tourism Council that certifies accommodations for Asian business travelers. A negative recommendation from me can lead to the cancellation of contracts worth tens of millions of dollars annually. Sandra Morrison began to tremble visibly, finally realizing she was not dealing with a regular tourist, but a person powerful enough to completely destroy the hotel's reputation with a single decision. But more importantly, Akiko raised her voice slightly, ensuring everyone in the lobby could hear, is that for the past 2 hours, I have recorded every prejudiced remark, every discriminatory gesture, and every xenophobic display that has come out of your mouth. That can't be legal, Sandra stammered desperately. You can't record a conversation without consent. Marcus Johnson stepped forward, his voice professional but firm. Actually, Miss Morrison, in public areas like a hotel lobby, there is no legal expectation of privacy. All of our security cameras have also recorded the entire incident. No, Sandra nearly shrieked, her composure completely shattered. You can't ruin my career over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Denise Washington finally spoke, her voice carrying an authority no one in the hotel had ever heard before. Miss Morrison, I've worked at this hotel for 6 years and witnessed countless similar situations. The difference is that today, your victim is powerful enough to defend herself. Akiko nodded respectfully at Denise before continuing her devastating counterattack. Miss Washington, I want you to know that I have taken the liberty of looking into your professional background while observing this situation unfold. Sandra Morrison appeared to be in a full-blown nervous breakdown, realizing she had completely lost control of the situation, and every passing second only made her position worse. The shock was evident on the faces of all the staff present. For years, Denise had been treated as disposable labor, when in fact, she possessed a professional background that most hotel managers could only dream of. Marcus Johnson looked at Sandra with an expression mixed with disbelief and deep professional disappointment. Miss Morrison, you have not only humiliated one of our most important guests, but you have also wasted an extraordinary talent who was right in front of us. Sandra was now completely desperate, trying to salvage her shattered career. I can explain. It was a stressful moment. I didn't mean to. You meant exactly what you said, Akiko interrupted her coldly. And thanks to modern technology, your true thoughts about those you consider different are now permanently recorded. Sandra's phone began to ring incessantly. It was clearly her superiors, who had likely already learned about the international disaster she had just caused. Her hands trembled so much she could barely answer the call. Hello? Her voice came out as a choked whisper. Yes, Mr. Davidson, I can explain. No, sir, I didn't know she was. While Sandra was desperately trying to justify herself on the phone, Akiko turned to Denise with an offer that would completely change her life. Miss Washington, I would like to offer you the position of Multicultural Relations Coordinator at our U.S. branch. The starting salary will be $90,000 a year, plus full benefits. The silence in the lobby at that moment was absolute. Denise had gone from a nearly invisible housekeeper to an international executive in a matter of minutes, all because she had the courage to do the right thing at the right time. Sandra Morrison hung up the phone, her face completely ashen. I've been fired, she announced to the hushed lobby, her voice breaking. Fired for gross misconduct and policy violations. I will never be able to work in the hospitality industry again. Justice was served in a complete and devastating manner. Sandra not only lost her job, but also her professional reputation, her connections, and almost any chance of continuing to work in the hotel industry. Meanwhile, Denise was finally recognized for the exceptional talent she always possessed. As Sandra Morrison collected her belongings under the contemptuous stares of her former admirers, a single question hung in the tense air of the transformed hotel lobby. Can a single act of courage and dignity completely change the rules of power and respect that have governed that environment for decades? This proves that sometimes a true revolution begins when an ordinary person refuses to remain silent in the face of injustice. 6 months later, Denise Washington sat in her office on the executive floor of Tanaka Technology International. She looked out the window at a spectacular city view she had once only known through the lens of a person cleaning its bathrooms and hallways. Her transformation was complete and inspiring. As the multicultural relations coordinator, she had implemented diversity programs at 12 partner companies. She had built bridges of commerce between marginalized communities and the corporate world, all while developing cultural training procedures that had become a national standard. Denise, the meeting with the Japanese executives is confirmed for 3 o'clock, her assistant, Marcus Johnson, announced. He was the one who had left the Grand Plaza to become her right-hand man at the new company. Their collaboration had proven to be extraordinary. Both had a deep understanding of the value of recognizing hidden talent. "Excellent, Marcus. How is our new intern doing?" Denise asked, referring to a young Latinx woman she had discovered working as a maid at another hotel. The girl spoke 4 languages fluently, but had been completely overlooked by management. "She's exceeding all expectations," Marcus smiled, "just as you predicted." At that very moment, in another corner of the city, Sandra Morrison sat in a small, run-down apartment, flipping through newspapers looking for any job opportunities. Her firing from the Grand Plaza had become a national scandal after Akiko Tanaka released the recordings of her discriminatory behavior. Sandra's reputation was completely destroyed. No reputable hotel would even consider her resume. Her family had disowned her after her prejudices were publicly exposed, and she had lost not only her career but also her social and financial identity. Social media continued to provide frequent reminders of her xenophobic comments, turning her into a national symbol of how prejudice and arrogance could ruin a life in a matter of hours. Every attempt to rebuild her professional image was thwarted by the viral video of her complete humiliation. "You know what makes me most proud of this entire story?" Akiko remarked during lunch with Denise at her favorite Japanese restaurant. "It's not just about helping you find your true place in the world, but proving that when we recognize and appreciate true diversity, everyone wins." Denise nodded, remembering that decisive moment in the hotel lobby when she decided she would no longer be silent in the face of injustice. "For years, I believed that my education and skills were worthless because the people around me refused to see them. I discovered that the problem was never with me." "What about Sandra Morrison?" Akiko asked with genuine curiosity, devoid of malice. "I heard she's working as a sales associate at a department store," Denise replied without a hint of schadenfreude. "I sincerely hope she has learned something valuable about respect and humility. True justice is not about destroying others, but about creating opportunities for everyone to grow." That afternoon, as Denise presided over a video meeting with executives from 5 different countries, translating and mediating multi-million-dollar negotiations as effortlessly as she once polished marble floors, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to where she was. Her story had become an inspiration to thousands through social media, documentaries, and motivational speeches. It was not a tale of brutal revenge, but a testament to the fact that true power lies in recognizing one's own worth, regardless of others' opinions. The most powerful lesson Denise had learned and now shared with audiences worldwide was that the best response to prejudice is not hatred or bitterness, but undeniable excellence that forces even the most cynical to recognize the truth. Sandra Morrison had tried to humiliate, belittle, and make Denise invisible, but she was ultimately the one who created the circumstances that allowed Denise to shine so brightly, something she would never have discovered under normal conditions. Sometimes, our greatest enemy inadvertently helps us realize our true power. Today, while Denise Washington is leading one of the most successful divisions of an international company, Sandra Morrison lives with the heavy consequences of mistaking temporary social status for true human value. This proves that, in the end, true victory is not in destroying those who harm us, but in building something so extraordinary that every attempt to diminish our greatness becomes insignificant. If this story of transformation and justice has touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their value does not depend on the recognition of others, but on the courage to show the world who they truly are when no one else believes in their potential.